Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Speaking Steagles, the premier Pennsylvania pro football podcast. I am Nick Bate. He is Ricardo Martinez Paz. We are talking all things Steelers and Eagles again today. Man, what a time to be an Eagles fan. Not a great time to be a Steelers fan. But I'm still happy because it's snowing, and I love snow, and I love skiing. My area in New York State expected to get 1.5 to 2 feet. Ricardo's area of New Jersey, I think, is just getting hammered with rain.
Yeah.
We don't have to dwell on that fact. We can be happy that I'm going to get snow. And
yeah, of course.
Think that's the trade-off. But Ricardo's getting rain, but the trade-off is the Eagles are potentially the best team in football. So trade-offs on both ends of this. But either way, I'm happy. Ricardo, I think you're done with finals this semester at school. I've got one final left. It's a take-home art history exam. Don't ask me why I'm in art history. I can't explain it. It's complicated. But I'm happy, even though I got one exam left. Snow's falling 3 inches since I got home like 40 minutes ago. It's ridiculous. There was no snow on the ground when I got here 40 minutes ago. Now we're up to 3-4 inches. But Ricardo, you can tell I'm amped up right now. How you doing?
I love this energy, man. I love it. I mean, I'm feeling good too. I mean, it sucks that it's raining, but I like how you put that spin on it. It's like, yeah, the Eagles are the best team in the league, so it does have its trade-off. But yeah, feeling pretty good. Finally got home. So
certainly the trade-offs, and I mean, I'm pretty I feel like there's a weight off my shoulders now that we don't have school all the time and we're dealing with all that crap. But hey, now I think we can get really excited about this and really talk about what we're here to talk about, and that's football. And I guess we can kind of get the bad stuff out of the way first. And we got good vibes going here. We'll get rid of the negative stuff. I got to talk about the Steelers a little bit, and then we can talk about the Eagles. But we can dive into the Steelers in what was really one of their most important games of the year against the Baltimore Ravens. Everything going into this game was setting up for the Steelers to potentially get this victory in the sense that Lamar Jackson was hurt. They were playing at home. The Steelers had come off of a 2-game winning streak. They had established an identity after the bye. And they come in, and it just seemed like nothing was going right from them, right from their first real opportunity, with the ball. Kenny Pickett got one throw off before he was out for the game. And that was kind of my first takeaway is, just from the start of the game, really, the Steelers had to kind of face adversity in the sense that Kenny Pickett went down with the concussion. Still in that concussion protocol. I haven't since it's been finals week. I haven't really been following his health status going into next week that closely. But just speaking on the Ravens game alone, not having him in there, and all of a sudden having this game plan of how you're going to attack the Ravens with Kenny Pickett at quarterback, and then all of a sudden have to switch things up and now adjust to Mitchell Trubisky being in there at quarterback. A lot of adversity the team had to deal with right away, and that's going to lead me to my second takeaway about Trubisky. I'll get into that a little bit, but it's just unfortunate too, because at this point, now I'll be one to say the Steelers are kind of out of playoff contention in my mind, not completely mathematically eliminated. But at this stage now, you want Pickett in there every game possible to develop, to kind of grow as a quarterback, hone his skills and see where he can get to going into next season, because clearly that's going to be more the goal. So now the fact that he could be out, another week on top of really only playing a couple snaps against the Ravens. Not what you want to see, especially because it's now the second time he's going into the concussion protocol this season alone.
Yeah, that pained me, dude. When I saw Pickett go down, I saw the tweet that he was out for the game, or at least he was first real questionable, then ruled out. But that's just that's tough, man. And Trubisky, I mean, he came in through 3 back-breaking interceptions. I mean, I know you're going to get into that, but it's just you can see the difference in play. I mean, it's just with Pickett. I mean, the last few weeks, the Steelers have. I mean, Pickett hasn't thrown a single interception, and then you see the huge difference it makes once obviously put in a veteran, but still, who's not. He doesn't have the exact same kind of chemistry with his receivers and all that. It's just. Yeah, adversity, like you said, it was tough to watch. And I mean,
especially because the game was right there the whole time. Even throughout the whole situation, even though you were like, all right, this is tough. Trubisky's clearly not, playing as well as potentially Pickett could have been. But to have all three of those interceptions come in Baltimore territory is just absolutely, it's backbreaking, like you said. It's brutal. You come away with a field goal on one of those tries. If Chris Boswell was able to kick the field goal that Calais Campbell blocked, there were so many opportunities here for the Steelers to capitalize. I think of the three that took place in Baltimore territory, the interceptions, two of them were even in the red zone.
Yeah.
So just absolutely brutal. You're shooting yourself in the foot. It just felt like it was a day where like everything that could go wrong for the Steelers when they had opportunities went wrong. And, it's really nobody to blame but the Steelers in that situation. So absolutely brutal. And, that kind of gets into my next point to a certain extent too. And I think you even touched on it, the fact that Kenny Pickett hadn't thrown an interception since the bye week. And then for Mitch Trubisky to come in and throw three of them, that hurts a ton. And it's not only just because of where the turnovers happen, but it's because of the way that the Steelers have been winning football games from the bye. I talked in length in the last episode about how after the bye week, the Steelers had established such a clear identity of don't turn the ball over, protect the football, no interceptions, and just pound the rock behind this offensive line that, hey, it may not be the most talented offensive line in the league, but they've started every game together. They've been in there. They've meshed together. They haven't been as bad as I expected them to be throughout the season. And, run the ball with Najee Harris, run the ball with Jalen Warren, even Benny Snell getting involved a little bit. And the fact that they also went away from that too, only 15 combined carries for Najee Harris and Jalen Warren in this game, as my dog Whiskey barks in the background, probably just at the snow falling or something. But to stray away from the running game, not completely, but to such an extreme degree, especially when Mitch Trubisky is then coming into the game and it's not Kenny Pickett, I don't know if I fully agree with that logic. And I know Baltimore is great against the run this season. I get that. But if we're going to go down, I'd rather go down with our identity, trying to pound the rock, trying to make something happen, protecting the football, rather than gifting Baltimore a turnover when we're deep inside Raven territory. So that was my third takeaway, is I didn't like how drastically we strayed away from our identity and put the ball in Mitchell Trubisky's hands to throw it 30 times.
I mean, Trubisky's a mobile QB too. He's like, so I don't know. I feel like they could have mixed in some QB read, I don't know, some RPO, a bit more RPOs, stuff like that could have at least helped open up the run game a little bit. But I mean, yeah, I do agree. Just putting the game in Trubisky's hand, at least throwing it wasn't the best. I mean, it clearly showed. I mean, 3 interceptions.
Yeah, I think it's as simple as that. And I think Trubisky even said after the game he was pressing a bit and trying to force it and trying to make too much happen. Yeah. Which is, it's excuse me, it's just frustrating because it's a game where it's so clearly within reach. And if you win that, you're winning 3 in a row. Then you go against Carolina. You're home on Christmas Eve, a big Christmas Eve game against the Raiders. I mean, you're talking about potentially rattling off 5 wins in a row and being right back in the thick of things. And now with this loss, you drop down to 8 losses on the season. It's not going to happen at this point. It's not going to happen. I don't see them going into Baltimore and at this point and playing Cleveland with Deshaun Watson back, and then obviously the 2 games you have against those AFC, those other non-conference opponents. I just don't see it happening at this point to win 4 in a row, especially with the Patriots and the Jets, and obviously the Bengals and the Ravens in front of you, and the Chargers you'd have to leapfrog as well. I just don't see it happening at this point, and it's extremely frustrating. And for me, I've been positive. I've been optimistic. Every time I've said this is a must-win game to stay in the playoff conversation, and Steelers lose that game, I've stayed optimistic and said, well, if they still do this, I'm not doing it anymore. This is it. Now we go into evaluation mode, and it's saying the rest of the season, hey, hopefully Kenny Pickett can get back in there at least for 3 of these last 4 games, see how he does. Let's watch this offensive line really close and see who's a player for next year that we can continue to build with and who needs to be a potential replacement. We got to look at, guys on the defense that are free agents, Terrell Edmonds, Cam Sutton. Like, are these guys, people were looking to give contracts to? Devin Bush has had a pretty solid season. Do we look at potentially trying to keep him around? How are we going to allocate the cap space we have? Are we going to ever get William Jackson on the field, the guy that we traded for?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the mode I'm going into, is it's evaluation time now. Obviously try and win these games, try and build, get Pickett back in there and let him grow. But the playoffs are out of the conversation now at this point in my mind. And to me, it's just about winning games and evaluating talent. So that's kind of the direction I see. I see this kind of the Steelers season going at this point. You're not tanking at this point. I'm very anti-tank, but it's just full on evaluation time.
Yeah, so that's pretty much, you summed it up pretty well. I mean, it's evaluate and try and finish the season strong. And I mean, that's usually how it works for teams that don't really make it to the postseason with a few games left or so. But that's tough. It's tough. I mean, we can go back and look at the games that they could have won, but we've already done that before, and that's already the past.
We've touched on that throughout the season. And you know what? When we get towards the end of the season, I'm gonna actually look and see how many of these games end up being one possession games. Yeah. But it's just been everything's been on the table for them to potentially win, and they haven't gotten it. And again, we see it, this week where it's another one possession game. And again, it's also frustrating. A point I didn't even really bring up that could have been another takeaway is the fact that Huntley went down with an injury for the Ravens, and Anthony Brown, third string quarterback, someone I'd never heard of, had to come in and man 2 series. One series, the drive went 13 plays and resulted in a field goal. I don't know how with a third string quarterback coming in off the bench, first game actually seen all season, that's able to take place. And then on his second series, all they need to do is get a first down. They don't even excuse me, I got this cough going. They just hand the ball off 3 times, pick up the first down, and the game's over. If you get a stop there, when 100% they're running the football on that series, 3 straight plays, get a stop, and you get the ball back to potentially make something happen and give Chris Boswell an opportunity to win it. But the Steelers defense couldn't get a stop, and we sit here with another Steelers loss, and it's extremely frustrating. So that's all I really have to say about this game. We'll talk very briefly about the Panthers game coming up, because that is going to be an absolute stinker. Neither, I guess the Panthers kind of, we'll get into that later. My player of the game, I could have given it to a couple different guys on defense, but I decided to give it to Deontay Johnson because I feel like he's been ragged on a little bit too much throughout the season, when really it's kind of been the up and down quarterback play, as well as the lack of kind of dynamic aspect to the passing game in Matt Canada's offense that I feel has kind of hurt him. He's been a great route runner this season. He's created a ton of separation throughout the year, and finally he got 8 targets and hauled in 6 of them this week for 82 yards. So he's still the Deontay Johnson who was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL last year. I fully believe that, and I fully believe with some better quarterback play and hopefully a different play caller next year, he'll be back to his full self. But I gave him the nod this week because he had a good game, and I think he was deserving of some recognition. He hasn't been as bad as critics have said he's been.
Yeah, I like that.
So let's get back to the positivity here, and let's talk about the Eagles and absolute thrashing of the New York Giants. Kick it off, man.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest takeaway has to be offense. I mean, putting up 48 points. I mean, that was, I'll give you the stats. It was over 450 yards total. This is the 3rd straight game with 30 plus points. The Eagles scored in every single quarter. The run game played a huge, huge role again. Miles Sanders, 17 carries, 144 yards. His longest was 40 yards, a 40-yard touchdown to cap off his 2 touchdown performance. He could have been up there for NFC Player of the Week, Offensive Player of the Week at least. And then the Giants killer, Boston Scott, also put one in the end zone, the last one in garbage time when it didn't matter. But he also had some pretty solid returns, kick returns for us. And then Jalen Hurts on top of that added 77 rush yards of his own. And then 217 pass yards, 2 passing touchdowns, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. The A.J. Brown one wide open. Devontae Smith one was really impressive. I don't know how in the world Devontae Smith did not get lit up by the Giants defender. And then that was on 4th and 7 too. The balls that Nick Sirianni had to go for it, and just like an all-out blitz the Giants sent, and then Devontae making that catch. And then some of the throws Jalen Hurts made in this game, oh my goodness, 2 of them were dropped, but they would have been so, one of them was a wheel route to Miles Sanders. Jalen Hurts rolling out to his right, and then
that was a nice
Sanders
one.
Just dropped it, then one right in the bucket to Devontae Smith near the 5-yard line, or at least the pass was caught in the 5-yard line. Just so uncharacteristic of Devontae Smith to not get his feet down. But I mean, this just keeps building his case for. I mean, he's favored now. Jalen Hurts is favored to win the MVP at this point
He
over
deserves it.
Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, he does deserve it. And I forgot to mention this. That rushing touchdown he had was a 10-yard one, and that was his 10th of the season. He's the first quarterback in the NFL to have 10 rushing touchdowns in back-to-back seasons. I mean, he just keeps breaking records. It's like, and then this offense as a whole, it's just so hard to stop. Miles Sanders now he has 11 rushing touchdowns. AJ Brown, 10 receiving touchdowns. Like, just the 10s.
I wanted to ask you about Sanders, and I just looked it up real quick. Like, what he's done this year, in a year where he was criticized in training camp a little bit. I remember he had like a little bit of flack with a reporter when he was like playing with the third team at one point during training camp. Like, they were giving Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott reps ahead of him. And he was like, hey, I'm just out here to like prove everybody wrong or something like that. Yeah. I mean, he's absolutely done so. He's gonna warrant a pretty big contract in this offseason. I'm curious whether you think that it's realistic the Eagles could possibly keep him around. I know obviously extending Jalen Hurts is going to be on their radar. But dude, another thing I want to ask you too.
Yeah.
Do we have to start talking about him? Now, he didn't have a bad year last year. He didn't score any touchdowns last year running the football. I think he had like 800 yards on the season. But like, can we talk about him in like NFL comeback player of the year conversations? Like, obviously, I think Geno Smith and Saquon Barkley are the first two we bring up. And again, I think it's a little weird because it's not like he didn't have a like quote unquote bad year last year. And I think Geno Smith is kind of running away with it, even though the Seahawks have struggled a little bit more recently. But I mean, like, to come back after scoring no touchdowns last year and be one of the best running backs in the NFL, I mean, I don't know. Is that a conversation that we could potentially open a little bit? Like, maybe you and I are the ones that could lead the charge on that. I don't know.
I didn't even think about that. But he has a case for it. He has, I forget the stats. I have it's like 1,068 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns, both career highs. He's averaging, I want to say, 5 or 6 yards per carry. So he's putting up gaudy numbers. Like, it's like he could potentially be in that conversation.
I'd never. You know how many off the top of your head, did he play the full season last year? Was he injured at all?
I think he missed 1 or 2 games last season.
Dude, I mean, even last year, like Saquon Barkley, whatever this site is, I don't even know how up to date. Sportsbettingdime.com. I don't know if these odds are accurate, but they have Geno Smith as a -900 odds to win NFL Comeback Player of the Year. Second is Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey tied. But I mean, like, I'm just looking at Saquon's stats from last year. He had 600 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, you compare that to Miles Sanders, who had 800 rushing yards last year, no rushing touchdowns. Like, Miles Sanders should be just right up there. Like, in my opinion, to then bounce back to 11 now, it's not like Saquon's having that much better a year than him at this point. And no. Miles Sanders is one of the best running backs in the league on the best team with the best record right now in the NFL.
Yeah, he's got all like he's got the points to like and all the support really to be considered. And that I really had never thought of that. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, I was just
I'm gonna push it on people that he should be in the top 3 for comeback player of the year. If the Seahawks somehow fall off a cliff and miss the playoffs, I'm gonna full on push for him to be comeback player of the year.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm putting it out there now. I'm putting it out there now.
I like that. I like that you're putting it out there. That's, I mean, I'm just trying to think too. What other awards are out there? I mean, other than MVP, like, I don't know what other awards exist, but this offense deserves a lot. Good. I mean, the Pro Bowl. I mean, forget about it. AJ Brown, Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts, Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson should all make it. I mean, it's just this team is playing so well right now. I don't. It's amazing. It's amazing to watch. Yeah, it's like, really, who is gonna stop this offense? Maybe Dallas, not even, but like
that's gonna be the game that, like, with how well the Eagles are playing right now, and I know Dallas just had a close one against the Texans. But like that's going to be the game. If the Eagles play at this level, granted, I don't want to overlook the Bears this week, and we'll get into that later. But that Dallas game is going to be so key, and we'll talk about this more. That's going to be the game where it's like, okay, with how well the Eagles have been playing so long, like for these last couple weeks, do they continue it and just steamroll Dallas, or is it really like a back and forth competition? Does Dallas, the division rivalry, do they have some sort of formula to slow them down a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see about that, but I'll flip it over to the defensive side. I'll give them some credit because they only held. I mean, they held the starting offense to 14 points. It also helped that the Eagles went up 21-0. I mean, that's sort of what we talked about last week. It's just like if the Eagles start to run away with it, this Giants offense isn't built to come from behind, and so that's exactly what they did.
100%.
Daniel Jones was sacked 4 times. Tyrod Taylor was sacked 3 times and also lost a fumble. Brandon Graham had 3 of those sacks. I also made him my player of the game. And he was also given the accolade of, what was it, NFC Defensive Player of the Week. I was kind of surprised by that, but not at the same time. 3 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks. I mean, the Walter Payton Man of the Year award nominee. And I was just like, this is just a feel good for me. He has 8.5 sacks in the season. He's never gotten double-digit career sacks, or sacks in the season, I should say. And he's 1.5 away from doing it. I really want him to do it, but I just have to give him a shout out for it because he had one heck of a game. Even though he only played like not even half the snaps, I think. It was some crazy stat like that. But Saquon only had 9 carries, 28 yards. I mean, he was also injured, which kind of benefited the Eagles. And then overall just allowed less than 250 yards from the starting offense. And so this again, this team is just so complete. It's like I don't know if there is a weakness really in this team. Even special teams played decently again this week. It's like
as long as they stay healthy with the level that they've displayed since that game where they barely beat the Colts, those 3 games since then, it's just been they've been playing, like you said, complete football, all aspects. It's been beautiful to watch. I mean, it's just one of those things where like when they play like this, the only thing that it feels like they could possibly derail them is an injury. That's literally all to a key player. That's literally all that it feels that could possibly prevent them from making a deep playoff run. They're that talented. I'm 100% with you. And we saw them. We talked about this last week. The only way that they could potentially lose to the Giants is if they sort of beat themselves to a certain degree, the way they did against Washington. But when they're playing this well, they're just not going to do that. They have too much talent. They have too much just cohesion at this point. Everybody kind of knows their role within this team as well, and it all blends together to arguably the most complete roster in football.
Yeah, it's so much fun to watch. And what makes it even better is my third takeaway here. The Eagles got seeding help from the Lions. Oh my goodness! I was like, Detroit, one of the hottest teams in the league right now. I kind of want them to make it to the postseason. I
kind of do too,
why
man.
Not? Yeah, they won.
Well, would you be cool with going up against them in the? Well, I guess they would have to win a game if the Eagles got a bye right now. But
yeah, they would have to. But I mean, I don't know if I'd want to play them. I probably wouldn't.
I don't know if anybody really wants them right now, dude.
Because they're steaming hot right now, and it's the fact that they started the season. What was it like 1-6? Like there's only been one team in NFL history that has gotten to the postseason after starting 1-6, which was the Bengals in I can't remember what year. I think it was in the 70s at some point. But that just shows how hard it is for them. Anyway, this isn't speaking.
It would be
line,
great. No, but honestly, dude, you're speaking facts right now. I mean, they're going to need some help because they're going to have to jump. Obviously both the Cowboys and Commanders, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. And one of those teams is going to lose this week because they're playing each other. But yeah,
exactly. And then just them beating Minnesota, that was huge in terms of seeding because now the Eagles are up 2.5 games. I'm not going to say that the Eagles are going to rest the starters in the last week or whatever. We're not there yet, one game at a time, but it certainly boosts their chances of really getting a hold of the NFC and getting that first seed for home field advantage throughout the playoffs and really give them a strong chance to make to the Super Bowl. It's just so many things went right this weekend for the Eagles. I mean, the Cowboys won. The Cowboys, if they had lost, that would have been perfect. But I mean, I can't really ask for more.
You really couldn't have wrote a better weekend script if they
Yeah,
outplayed the
exactly.
Bucs.
It was just yeah. So those are my three takeaways. I mean, a lot of positive from that. I mean, all positive really.
Who'd
So
you have as the player of the game again? Was it
Brandon Graham. Yeah,
Brandon Graham? Yeah, that's what I
yeah,
thought.
yeah. So
Yeah, man, lot of positivity, over there in Philadelphia. So, do you have anything else you want to touch on from this game?
nah, that's all I got.
All right, sounds good. We will very quickly transition back to the Steelers and talk briefly about their matchup. I gotta tell you, Ricardo, I'm not gonna sit here and spend 10 minutes breaking down the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Carolina Panthers. I
That's
know that's
fair.
our show here, but I mean, let's be real here with our expectations for Pittsburgh. If Kenny Pickett doesn't play, what are you really getting out of this game? Like I said, there's really in my mind no clear way that this team is getting to the playoffs at this point. Um, to me, it really just comes down to the fact of like, hey, let's just start evaluating the talent on our roster. Honestly, the Panthers have more to play for at this point than the
Yeah.
Steelers do. I mean, you look at how bad the NFC South division has been. The Steelers already beat the Buccaneers,
Yeah.
way back in what was that, week like 6 now? The Panthers are sitting in second place in the division right now, led by Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Shockingly enough. But I'm talking about the Panthers potentially getting a win this week and the Buccaneers, who I believe they play. I think they play the Bengals. They're playing another
They
AFC
do.
North team
Yeah,
this
they
week.
do. They do.
So I mean, we're talking about a big time game for the Panthers. But like I said, I mean, I'm still going to sit here and hope that the Steelers can win. And now the Panthers are surprisingly running the ball very well in
Yeah.
recent weeks since trading away Christian McCaffrey of all people. So
Yeah.
it's going to be another thing where, like, hey, I want the Steelers to win. Who knows what the case is going to be at quarterback, but it's going to come down to can you just stop the Panthers' running game, which has been how they've won games in the last quarter of the season. Their last 4 games, the game that they've found victories, it's been because they've been running the ball. So that's where this game is going to be won or lost in my mind, is going to be in the trenches.
Yeah, I mean the Steelers last week gave up 215 rush yards, so um, a bounce back game for the defense would be nice. But yeah, we'll see what happens. They got some pretty solid players: Chuba Hubbard, Deontay Foreman,
On
Raheem
top of that, now
Blackshire.
you also consider the fact that Chris Wormley on the defensive line went
Oh
down with the
yes,
torn ACL last game, so they're going to
yeah,
be weakened there. I believe Montravius Adams is also dealing with an injury right now, and I know that they brought back in Ola Adaney, who's been with the Steelers at various stints throughout his career. They signed him when I believe the Titans let him go. They also, I believe, again, I've been kind of in and out on all the little transactions because of
yeah,
finals week we've been involved with. I think they also called up Carlos Davis off the practice squad. Tyson Alualu, father time is just kind of catching up with him at this point in his career. Um,
yeah,
but it's gonna be that's where it's gonna be. Like you said, the fact that the Panthers have done well running the ball and the Ravens ran all over them last week, and the Steelers are dealing with some depth issues on the defensive line and at nose tackle specifically. So we're gonna have to see if the Panthers are really capable of exploiting that. I'm also a little bit excited to see kind of the matchup to a certain degree of what Sam Darnold does against the Steelers. I know that may sound a little weird, but he was a guy I was kind of
yeah,
pulling for the Steelers to sign him when the
yeah.
Jets drafted Zach Wilson and made the decision to trade Sam Darnold to the Panthers. I was kind of pulling for the Steelers to trade for him. Instead, they
Hmm.
obviously went out and signed. I guess that back then they just brought back Ben Roethlisberger for another year. That was Ben Roethlisberger's last season. But I was
Yeah.
saying let Sam Darnold kind of be the heir to Ben Roethlisberger. Glad we have Kenny Pickett at the helm now, but I am interested to see how he kind of performs in this game, and I'm pulling for him to a certain degree. But obviously, I still want the Steelers to give him a tough time in this game.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. I remember, yeah, that you were big on Darnold.
I've always been a Sam Darnold guy, ever since his days at USC. But
Yep.
so be it. Those looks like where the peak of his athletic career was his days at USC. But we will see if the Steelers can come away with a victory in this one. Um, they could keep hopes alive to a certain degree, but again, I think that playoff hopes are pretty much shot at this point. And
Right.
at this point, they're just playing to win the game and playing to try and just build towards next season and see what you have talent-wise spread throughout this roster. So that's what we're looking for in this game against the Panthers. And let's kick it back to the Eagles, and this will be the last thing we do here today is talk about their matchup this week
Yeah.
going up
So
against the Bears.
yeah, the first thing obviously has to be stopping Justin Fields. He's dealing with Justin Fields is dealing with an injury, I believe, or sorry, an illness. But he's probably still going to play. He'll be fine by Sunday. Um, on the season, he has 905 rushing yards, 8 rushing touchdowns. I mean, he can break such long runs. It's actually unreal. Like, just I don't know how he does it. He's just that.
Are you could I, I think you could make the case, and I don't know if a lot of people would argue it. He may be the best rushing quarterback in football.
I was gonna say he probably is.
I mean,
I
like I
think
think
he is.
we're even at the point we could put him, above Lamar Jackson. It sucks Kyler Murray got hurt, but I think you could even before Murray got hurt, you could say he's surpassed Kyler Murray in that respect. I don't know
Yeah,
many guys that are on the same level as him.
yeah. It's yeah. He's just really good as a runner. And so setting the edge is gonna be like making sure that he doesn't break contain is gonna be huge in this game. And to be fair, for credit to the Eagles, I mean against Kyler Murray, back in what I think it was week 6 or so, what 5 or 6. Kyler Murray only had 4 runs for 42 yards, and then Daniel Jones just last week only had 4 runs for 26 yards. So they've been like fairly decent against mobile QBs. Although I mean Justin Fields is just he's a different breed of
I was gonna
rushing
bring that
QB.
up. How they like that? Those were really the only two rushing quarterbacks they've
Yeah,
gone up against all season, and they hemmed them both in pretty well. Granted, the Bears as a team run the ball really well,
yeah,
but I think given the way that the Eagles have played, I mean, obviously they had their struggles back when they were going up, when they were kind of in that struggling phase when they were going up against like Damian Pierce and obviously the committee in Washington and even Jonathan Taylor to a certain extent, but they've kind of gotten past that, containing Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry in recent weeks, where if they can contain one aspect of this Bears rushing attack, I think that's going to be pretty key for them, and I think that's going to kind of allow them to slow the Bears offense down, and then I'm sure you're going to talk about what they're going to do going to work against the Bears defense.
yeah. I was that's yeah, pretty good transition actually. So really to sort of neutralize this is just the Eagles have to score early, get up early, and make Fields sort of like what they did with the Giants. Make Fields throw it and try and win it with his arm and get him back in the game or whatever. But um, it's this Bears defense isn't really good. They traded away a lot of players. Got rid of quite a few. And so I'm not going to say it's going to be a walk in the park necessarily. They're 11th against the pass, but 27th against the run. So that's what, like 5th worst in the league. They're last in sacks with only 16. They're tied. They're middle of the pack in takeaways with 15. And so this could be another huge Miles Sanders game. Really, I mean, he has 5 rushing touchdowns in the last 3 games. Yeah, on the season he does have 1,068 yards. I knew I wrote it down somewhere. So it's gonna be one of those things where I feel like the Eagles should run the ball more and keep Justin Fields off the field, I guess. But
Yeah, I think that's probably a good recipe for success, and I think it's one of those things where it's like you're playing your second of 3 road games in a row, and obviously you've got the big game against Dallas. Do you have any worry about this being a little bit of a trap game that maybe they're looking ahead to Dallas? You just came off of the thrashing of a division rival in the Giants, who could potentially be a playoff team. Do you maybe overlook the Bears at all? Is that something you're a little bit concerned about? I mean, if you run the ball with Miles Sanders and keep Fields off the field, I think that's certainly a formula that would, benefit them. It's probably the best way to go about it. But could this be a trap game at all?
no, I don't. I mean, no, I really don't think so. Jordan Mailata said it best when responding to Micah Parsons' criticism or whatever um, of Jalen Hurts or whatever. Like we're focusing on Chicago. We're not playing the Chicago Micah Parsons. He said so. So I mean, yeah, I think they're all locked in. They know that they've been taking it one game at a time. I feel like that's been uh, emphasizing that it's one game at a time, 1 week at a time. Dallas is next week. They're not looking ahead to that. And I think that Jordan Mailata quote was pretty telling of
I think
where
that's
they're at
definitely
mentally.
he summed it up perfectly, and I think that's kind of the mindset. This Eagles team wouldn't be with the record that they have right now, one loss on the season, if they didn't embody that mindset.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they'll be fine. And then I guess my last thing to look for is the Eagles safety tandem. Anthony Harris was recently signed to the practice squad. They're probably going to promote him. He was with the Eagles last season, and he probably would have made the roster if they hadn't traded for CJ Gardner Johnson, who was obviously on IR still. He isn't eligible to come back until after the Dallas game. And he's familiar with Jonathan Gannon's system, so he'll be also filling in for the injured Reed Blankenship, who's the rookie, who's been looking pretty good. Although, I mean, thankfully, his injury is only a minor like knee sprain. So it's going to be him, Anthony Harris, Marcus Epps, and Kayvon Wallace. Kayvon Wallace did not look very good when he played last week. So
When has he ever?
Yeah, exactly. The fact that he's on this roster still is beyond me, but it's fine. They'll have them three, maybe promote one of their other safeties from the practice squad. We'll see, but I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue, since the Bears really aren't a huge threat passing the ball necessarily. So I think they'll be fine.
And I mean, you still have obviously Bradbury and Slay who are going to be,
Exactly
what they do when it comes to defending the pass. So I'm with
Yeah.
you. I think they'll be able to survive. And you still got Marcus Epps back there, who's obviously been a staple of the defense all season as well.
Yeah, he seems to get flagged every week for some ridiculously hard hit on a receiver, defenseless receiver, mind you, but it's fine. That's just how he plays.
We also, one other thing, I know Robert Quinn had his big game last week, but we've got a little bit of a revenge game here. Return to Chicago, see what he does a little bit. No,
I think he's on IR actually. So
did they put him on IR?
I think yeah, because I don't remember what the injury is exactly, but they, I think they brought back Jordan Davis as a result of putting Robert Quinn on IR. So he's not going to be back till probably the Saints or Giants game, probably the Giants game actually, or the postseason. Who knows? But it would have been a cool storyline. But well, yeah, I guess it just isn't going to happen. But
Yeah, it is what it is. But hey, again, that's kind of the beauty of how this Eagles roster has been built, is the fact that they have such drastic depth that what they at the end of the day they'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah. So that's all I got.
All right, man. Sounds good. We will be tuning in and watching both of these games, and we'll be talking about them next week. Will update you that since we started here over this 40 minutes we've been talking, it looks like we've got another inch and a half of snow outside. So I'm going skiing tomorrow, dude. I already have a feeling it's gonna happen. As long as the temperatures stay, we'll be good to go. So
love that.
I will talk to you next week. Thank you everyone for watching this whenever you tune it in. That's all we got for you. We will see you next time. Later.